The Mayo Experience.
Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, AFC, NFC, Championship games, DraftKings picks, and preview. It is a 2-game slate, obviously. So I'm going to be talking this through with Jake Ciely from theathletic.com. But first, I have to remind everyone, if you want to get into a draw for 100 DraftKings dollars, here's what you do. You subscribe to the Pat Mayo Experience audio podcast, leave a 5-star review, DraftKings handle, something you enjoy about this show, boom. You're in that draw for 100 DK bucks. You want to get into a draw for 20 DK bucks? Smash the like button for the video. Leave your DraftKings handle in the comment section and tell me the big name on the 2-game slate for this slate that you are going to fade this week. 100% fade. And that means if you play 100 lineups, 0 of 100. You play 1 lineup, 0 out of 1. That way you can get into a draw for 20 DK bucks. If you're missing some DraftKings action, highly recommend you get into golf because I cover golf and you can just enjoy some great golf shows. But if you use fantasynational.com and fantasynational.com/PME, get yourself 20% off. You get in the game. It's super easy. And trust me, if you like football DraftKings, you will love golf DraftKings. It's set up weirdly the same way, except for instead of 1 day, it's 4 days. Well, more bang for your buck. So go check that out. Jake, how was Vegas?
We saw each other. It was good. I lost some money on the poker table with a bad poker table recommendation, though. So the good times were what we had.
Now, see, the move was so Andy Behrens from Yahoo, Brad Evans was lurking around as well near the sports book, and like their old producer from Yahoo went to San Jose State. So everyone just started betting San Jose State plus 12.5. So I was like, fuck it, I'm in. And then they covered, and like they were down by 19 with 3 minutes ago and lost by 11. It was fantastic.
Funny enough, the poker table that was not a good idea to go to, the guy sitting there at the table, because it was the night before, said, tomorrow night, lock of the night, San Jose State. So there you go. Apparently that was a well-known for the sharps out there. But I put a bet before I left because it's the one time I could bet. The lady messed up. What do you do, Pat? I said, I didn't even know this until I walked away. She messed up my ticket.
I think that's now on you.
I know, so I did what you said. I said, if you're going to take the Chiefs, don't find an alternative spread. But they didn't have that. So what I did is I took the Chiefs to cover, but I also took the Chiefs over 30.5. She put over for the game. And I didn't realize until I walked away that that's what she did.
Well, I guess in one sense, if the Chiefs are going to hit the over for their total points, the over is probably likelier to hit.
I guess so, but and I brought it back with, like you said, the Green Bay to cover. That was so you helped me with my 3-team parlay before I left.
Pat Mayo does not condone parlays. I prefer individual bets. Parlays tend to be losing bets.
I know, but it's the only time I can't bet. We can't bet in here in Virginia. It was a one-time thing. It was like I might as well just have fun with it before I go home.
All right. Well, I see. I enjoy that. So you just do it for entertainment. Then you don't feel so bad when you lose. And if you win, it's fantastic. Let's talk about this slate, though, on DraftKings. Only the 2 games. So just honestly, when you start filling out your lineups, you have to do some of the key things if you don't want to get duplicated by leaving some money on the table, obviously. And there's only so many combinations. I don't even know if any of them actually work out to have 0 left on the table. So everyone's going to be leaving some on the table. So you can leave a ton on the table. You can try to leave like 1,000 on the table. Whatever lineup that you end up telling yourself that this one can win, then that's probably what you have to do. But I think the move is the high-end fade. And that was the giveaway for this episode is, do you have the balls to not play Derrick Henry? And if you don't, then you X out 80% of the field if he has a bad game. That kind of move. It doesn't need to be Derrick Henry. It could be Devontae Adams, whoever it is. So we'll try to talk through that position by position and find out who it's going to be. And we'll start at running back, and there are very limited options. Derrick Henry being the most expensive one. He's $8,700. The thing is, unless you take every single expensive player on the board, and even then you could probably still squeeze them all in. But let me ask you, would you rather do Derrick Henry or fade Derrick Henry and use Williams and Jones? Because that's essentially like using 2 of these 3 is going to be the move unless you find a way to smack all 3 of them in.
See, I think the more common play, so as you said, if you want to X out a lot of the field, is going to be what you said with the Williams and Jones pairing, because we've talked about it in the episodes before, and I think people are starting to get wizened up to it in the fact that you want to pay up for running back for that security, and I think that people are going to look at this and you and I talked about it. You're the one who made the case for it, and we talked about while we were in Vegas is you kind of start to create your own stories here. And if you're creating a story, I think a lot of people inherently are going to be on the story the Chiefs are going to score. And in that case, you start to worry a little bit about Derrick Henry. Mind you, you run against the Chiefs to win. We know that. And Derrick Henry has been running the ball like a monster since the end of the season. But I think that a lot of people will sit there and go, well, Williams is going to score a lot. The Packers should be able to come against the 49ers. And then they're probably going to talk themselves into the fact that not everybody's going to be on Jones because of the 49ers defense and because of the savings. I think you're going to get a lot more of that duo than you will Henry and X.
Here's the thing, though, is fading Derrick Henry just like I'm so smart, watch me fade Derrick Henry, like people have been doing the past 2 weeks, and then be like, oh, he has 40 DraftKings points. Perfect. I lost.
That's kind of how I feel about it, because I think that even if the Chiefs walk away, look, even if they cover the 30.5, and even if this is 40-point game for them, I still think there's going to be enough from Tennessee in this game that whether or not they're passing, whether or not they don't ever get that much of a volume passing where it's like 75% passing, 70% passing, and all of a sudden it's only Dion Lewis. So I think Derrick Henry, for me, I'm putting him in. I don't care if that I'm in with 80% of the field or 50% of the field. I just feel like it's a smart play, similar to earlier this year where people are trying to talk themselves out of Christian McCaffrey at 9,500 and 10,000. You can do it. You're fine, but most of the time it's wrong. Like there was 1 week where that really didn't pay off for you, for Christian McCaffrey being the opposite where he didn't come through.
So other than a high-end fade to differentiate your lineup, the move, it's probably best to do it receiver over running back, although when we spoke last week, anyone that ended up using Tevin Coleman ended up doing pretty well. So out of all like the scrub running backs, and I none of the Niners running backs are scrubs. It's just there are too many of them, so we can't really project which one it's going to be. Like it was Coleman last week. Does that mean it's Coleman this week? Absolutely not. We do not know that. So it could be Mostert again. It could be Breda. Or would you prefer to use one of the San Francisco guys, or would you take a shot with like Jamal Williams and hope that this is his game all of a sudden?
There you go. 100%. That's actually, I don't want to look, but there's going to be lineups. There's only 2 games here. I went Derrick Henry, Jamal Williams, because I went up for Derrick Henry and then I brought it back, like you just said, with Jamal Williams. To sneak a preview, a little jumping ahead, it was with the Packers defense, but the Jamal Williams situation, it's really, look, this can go wrong probably 30% of the time, or actually no, wrong 70% of the time. It works like 30% of the time. But the time that it does work is, as you mentioned, it's a Jamal Williams, and it's not necessarily a game. We know this about Jamal Williams. It's not like he's going to have 20 touches in this game, but it's that 50-50 share, and he got all the goal line work, and he ends up with a rushing or potentially 2 rushing touchdowns. So that's kind of what you're trying to go with here, is that the fact that, hey, it's just the Jamal Williams week. It's not really a game script you can predict for him because it is Jamal Williams and Aaron Jones. But we've seen that the entire year is, even when Aaron Jones didn't have Jamal Williams, those games weren't what we wanted from Aaron Jones without Jamal Williams, because it's the Packers. You just really can't predict their backfield despite being only 2 running backs from week to week, unlike the 49ers. So I think a lot of people are going to be chasing, as you mentioned, the 49ers and chasing Coleman, and then the ones that aren't going to be like, oh, they're going to go back to Mostert, so you're going to get a lot of Mostert in that. So I'm going the Jamal Williams route.
I think that Colonel Mostert, makes the most sense if you were to go to a Niners running back, solely because he's just way cheaper than Tevin Coleman is now, which leads me to believe like Matt Breda is probably somehow the play, although what he ended up playing last week, he played
like
7
snaps.
Well, Coleman played 46%, Mostert played 34%, and Breda played 17%. And it wasn't all just like garbage time for Breda. These guys were mixed and matched throughout the game. It's just Coleman got the important touches, and that's really all that matters. We look at Aaron Jones versus Jamal Williams. It was like an 84 to 11% split, but a lot of that had, and Tyler Ervin ended up with like 8% of snaps too. He was just randomly on the field weirdly. It was 84, 14, 7. So they were playing some 2-back sets at some points. But if you tell yourself the story in this game that San Francisco jumps out to the lead, I would have to think that's when the margin between Jones and Williams shrinks a lot. Like you're not going to, if the Niners are up 10-0 after the first quarter, after the fourth quarter, that would just be a game where you don't want anyone, I suppose. But after the first quarter, then you start seeing Williams get in for these passing down snaps. At least that's the story you need to tell yourself for Jamal Williams to have value.
Yes, I would agree with you there. But the big thing that I'll echo what you said in Vegas. And what you're saying right now is for everybody out there, the biggest thing, especially if it's only a 4-team slate, 2-game slate, is you have to tell yourself something. You have to create this story that makes sense. And the something we talked about last week is just make sure when you're doing it that you create this entire story and then don't make a lineup that makes no sense with it. Like, don't bring something back that goes contradictory to everything you just set up. Like, you're talking about the Packers. If you're going to go heavy in the Packers and say they're going to be up big and you bring it back to the defense and Jamal Williams, all that, put in Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams too. Like, so you got to kind of create the scenario there.
Well, the one issue is that you almost, with only 4 games, it's almost impossible to tell yourself a story that doesn't contradict each other at some point.
True.
So you almost have to have a one-off. Like, if you love all that stuff, but you're like, I think Marcus Valdez-Scantling is going to catch a 90-yard touchdown. It's like, well, chuck him in then. I don't think that's going to happen, but like, you need to give yourself the option of an outlier, especially a low-owned, cheap outlier too, because like I said, fading someone at the top and having them have a bad game is step 1. Step 2 is finding the 1 or 2 players that are cheaper that come in at like, no one's coming with like 1% ownership, but if you can get them at like 9%, almost like Kendrick Bourne last week. Like, if you can find the Kendrick Bourne of this week, and it could be Kendrick Bourne for all we know, that is kind of the move that you want to make, and just box it. Like, you have the cheap guy who hits and no one else does. Like, you have to find that guy, and you need to be right. And that's, hard to do.
Yeah. I kind of feel like I have 2 of those, and that's why it's going to be hard to see this lineup win, but hey, it might.
Yeah, well, they need to hit. That's where we need to start off with this. For like the lock button on a running back, it's Damian Williams, right?
If you're going for that route, yeah. So obviously, and you always, when I brought this up earlier, like, I don't play those, but if you're playing cash, just put Damian Williams in, figure out the rest later. Tournament wise, he's probably going to be chalky, but as I've brought up before, this is the Chris Meany thing. Chalk isn't always the bad thing, especially as you just mentioned. How many players do you have to pick from here? It seems like if you can get Damian Williams in there, unless you're just trying to go contrarian, like my lineup doesn't have Damian Williams, because that's because I'm just going with I either finish in 100,000th place, or maybe I'm in the top 5 and I bring home a nice chunk.
Well, the big thing with Williams is he played over 95% of the snaps last week, and there's no real script that he gets written out of. If they're down by a bunch, he's going to be on the field catching passes. If they're up by a bunch, he's going to be on the field running the ball. So I think that it doesn't, like, Derrick Henry is the safest, obviously, of all the running backs, but you're paying the premium for him. And there is a situation where he's at least limited because of game flow. We know the Chiefs can't stop the run, but the best defense to Derrick Henry, and no one's really been able to pull this off, is just get up by 14 really early, and then you're not going to see a ton of Derrick Henry.
So that's kind of for my story that I'm chasing here. I kind of went with the Chiefs get up big and get up passing, and then maybe Damian Williams is just spelled a little bit to keep him fresh for the Super Bowl. Some of this whole whatever the rest situation the Chiefs have been using this year with LaShawn McCoy and all the rest, and whatever what's the NBA call it? I forget what they call it, like minute restriction or something. I don't know, whatever it is.
Load management.
Load management. Thank you. Yeah. So I kind of created a scenario here where it's like, hey, I'm going to go with the Chiefs passing game. They get up 28 nothing in the first half. And maybe we don't see a ton of Damian Williams touches in general. They just put up 4 touchdowns in 1 quarter, so we know it could happen. So that's the only way. And even then, your point, as you just said, Damian Williams is probably still on the field, even in the second half, a decent amount, unless they just completely take him out and say, we're just going to make sure he's healthy. So that's kind of where I'm going. It's a slim case, though.
Wide receivers, Devontae Adams is the most expensive. I actually think he is the most logical fade of any of the highest priced players. You just hope that half the time he's on Sherman, the rest of the time they just match him up with someone.
Williams.
Match him up with Williams and put a safety over the top and just be like, he's not going to beat us. And if that's the case and they do commit resources to taking out Devontae Adams, then everyone else is kind of in play. That really feels like the skeleton key of the week. Can you pick the right Packers receiver who does something? And it could be anyone. Like last week, Camaro played 47% of the snaps. Lazard played 31%. Allison played 31%. MVS played 8%. Weirdly, Mercedes Lewis played 66% of the snaps last week in a very run-heavy game, obviously. And Jimmy Graham only played 38% of those snaps. We know that Graham is definitely going to be used more in the receiving game, but almost like Blake Bell last week, how he won a bunch of people money in showdown for the Chiefs, Mercedes Lewis is someone potentially in that offense who could just sneak a touchdown because he's going to be on the field. But if it wasn't Adams and you had to pick a Packers receiver, hey, who is it going to be?
So, yeah, the problem with Kumaro is that even with how many targets and opportunities he's getting, I mean, there's so many zeros on there. And I know some of those games he's not even out there as much, but It's kind of what, you talked me into it. I'm going to just take your guys. You were standing with the three of us, you, me, and TJ Hernandez. We're standing there and we're discussing it, talking about, well, if you're talking snaps and opportunities and targets, you're talking Lazard. But if you're talking about who could break the big one, you talked about it. I don't want to steal it. I'll just let you talk about what brought you to him. But I think Valdez-Scantling is the cheap one to go after. But you give the reason, because I don't want to take anything you just said, because you're the one that brought it up.
He played 5 snaps last week.
I know, but what you're talking about,
but they were winning the whole way. So you'd have to assume that if they get down, and that's what you're going with here, and they are 7.5 point dogs. I like them to cover, but I'm wrong a lot. That if they're down,
but you brought up more than that. Do you not remember?
No, I'm saying that if they do shift the coverage, you have to think, what is he on the field for? He's the deep shot guy. Now, he drops it half the time. That's not great. But you just want to see if you can get that opportunity. So if they do make a concerted effort to take out Devontae Adams, especially with safety help when he's not lined up against Richard Sherman, then all of a sudden you have an opportunity for someone to get behind the defense. And if I had to bet who the guy getting the shot is, it would be Valdez-Scantling.
Yes, and one of the things you talked about too, we were talking about, it was Jimmy Graham was used in blocking, also kind of almost like just a space eater, just like take attention away, like we don't even care about you. You're just out there to just kind of get things clogged up in a little area, and then we can break it downfield with somebody else. You're not, and that's Mercedes Lewis getting the touchdowns because Jimmy Graham's essentially just Jason Witten at this point.
Jason Witten, but not going like 6 for 42 every single week. But it's just funny, like the Packers rolled out 4 different tight ends at. I mean, the fewest amount of snaps played by one of their 4 tight ends last week was 33%. So they're just doing a complete rotation.
Because they're all getting used the same way, because none of them are like that great of a talent.
So I guess the way to do it would be to break down the goal line usage. And this is how I ended up on Kendrick Bourne last week, as we talked about, is he is just kind of involved in their goal line packages. He's not really on the field all that much comparatively, no. But when they get in close, they put him in. It's a lot like when you look at the Chiefs offense. Hardman is the one who's going to be on the field a ton when they're in between the 20s and taking shots. And once they get near the goal line, inside the 10, it's Demarcus Robinson who's on the field, not McCole Hardman.
Right, but Marcus Robinson is another one that needs to hold on to the ball. So I agree with you, though. These are the kind of opportunities you have to look for. And I think I've said that now 3 times. I agree with you. This doesn't feel good at the end of the year to be like, I agree with you.
Yeah, it's just like Jake Ciely, noted expert in accuracy for fantasy rankings, by the time January comes along, starts to agree with worst place in accuracy, Pat Mayo. Not a good idea.
Hey, combined effort, we got number 1 in defenses.
Yeah, well, you listen to me for defense, listen to you for the rest.
Except tight ends. No, this is good. This is why you're doing tight ends. I finished 90th in tight ends, top 12 in the other 3.
All right, I'll do your tight ends and defenses next year, and combined we'll come in first place. That's the move.
You'll do my tight end. Is that what you just said, Pat?
That is what I'm saying. Listen, I'm in Canada. Anything goes up here, man.
I'm fresh off a trip from Vegas. I don't care anymore.
Who would be Adams, Hill, Samuel, and A.J. Brown and Sanders? Let's call those the quote-unquote safe guys, the good guys, the guys that are always going to play across these 4 teams. I think people will fade Adams, which then makes him somewhat interesting. It's tough, though, with him. He's just basically peppered with the ball over and over and over, and he's good enough that he can get away from this. But who is the lock receiver for you of those top guys? Is it Hill?
It is. And for me, but I could just see where I guess the lock doesn't really care if you care about the ownership being too high, because I feel like he's just going to be such an easy drop down to save $700 from everybody going to Adams, and everybody's going to talk about everything we just talked about. You're worried about Sherman, you're worried about Williams, you're worried about the 49ers defense not being stupid of what we just saw last week and saying, hey, you don't really have much else in the passing game. Let's take away a top 10 wide receiver in the NFL and be smart about it. And so I think a lot of people are going to be on Hill. But again, to go back to it, chalk isn't always a bad thing. But I think Hill is the lock. It comes down to the 49ers. I actually think it's the second one. And part of me is leaning Sanders instead of Debo for this one game.
Well, that would put you way off course with what the public is doing right now. So, like, early ownership projections show Tyreek Hill and A.J. Brown to be by far the highest owned receivers on this slate. Then it's Adams, and then it's Debo. And then below that, it's like Emmanuel Sanders. And Sammy Watkins is somehow still in this mix, too. I think people are talking themselves into Watkins being like, Watkins sucks. But here's the thing. No one's going to play him. So I'll use him. But like everyone's doing that. So they're all using Sammy Watkins. Like, I would honestly rather I would rather just use Demarcus Robinson. Like, he's on the field almost as much, and they use him in the red zone. Like, why not? And he's $3,300.
Yeah, 100%. And that's the biggest thing. Is like Sammy Watkins, I could talk myself into this for the same game. If Patrick Mahomes throws 5 touchdowns, Sammy Watkins might catch one. But Sammy Watkins hasn't done anything since week 1. And the only opportunity of where you want to chase him is if nobody else is on him. As soon as as you just mentioned, he was in my mind as somebody I thought we were going to talk about wide receiver for that very reason. But as soon as now you're saying that people have already talked themselves into, forget it. I don't want Sammy Watkins in my lineup. Forget it.
So the other way to play this, and I think that the contrarian move of the slate is going to be Damian Williams, maybe another Chief, whether it be Kelsey or whether it be Hill or Demarcus Robinson, whoever, and then go Tannehill and 2 pass catchers for the Titans. That's the way that you get out of fading Derrick Henry. Like, you can fade Derrick Henry and just say the Titans are going to keep up in this game, but it's all going to be through the passing game. So whether it's a tight end, whether it's receivers, and if it's not, like, A.J. Brown would have to be a part of that mix. But if you go to a different Titans receiving option, like, who's it going to be? Because it looks like Adam Humphries might play in this game.
We played that game, and I'm kind of tired of playing that game. It was like Tajay Sharp and Adam Humphries and all the rest. If Adam Humphries does play, he would seem to be the one. The thing with A.J. Brown is I'm a little hesitant. Yes, the Chiefs did just get lit up by the Texans passing game. However, for the majority of the season, the Chiefs pass defense was actually really good. It was top 10. And then I say it's not number 1. We're not talking about the Patriots, not talking about the Ravens, but we're talking about a defense that you gave respect to. And I was already off of A.J. Brown to come back to that for that situation. So I don't want A.J. Brown because, like you said, he's going to be so popularly owned that he's going to get similar to what the 49ers are going to do with Devontae Adams. Why are you going to pay attention to anybody else in the passing game? Just take away A.J. Brown and say, let Jonnu try to beat you. Let Adam Humphries and Corey Davis try to beat you, and focus your concerted efforts on 2 players. And if the rest of the people beat you, you deserve to lose. Just focus on stopping Henry and Brown and all the rest. So if it's anybody else, it's not going to be Corey Davis. I think it would be Adam Humphries for hopefully one of those, look, they tried to keep pace. They did keep pace. He ended up with 9 targets, caught 6 for 90 yards and a score. And that's really what you're trying to go for with Adam Humphries. And he's done it before this year.
And he did catch a touchdown in Week 10 against the Chiefs as well. I know Mahomes was banged up in that game, and that game was in Tennessee. The other weird note from that game is, do you know who led Tennessee in receiving against the Chiefs last time around?
Not Corey Davis. Khalif Raymond?
It was Khalif Raymond. 1 catch, 52 yards. He's sort of like Tennessee's Marquez Valdez-Scantling.
And there you go, 100%. But did you know, led them in receiving 52 yards. The Chiefs secondary is pretty dang good. And again, they got blitzkrieged in the first half. But after that, they kind of got themselves in check.
I'm just saying this as the contrarian route to a passing stack. It probably would go through it goes through the Titans or the Packers. Like, that's the whole thing.
Yeah, I think that's the contrarian way to play. I went contrarian enough that I stacked a little bit. I actually went with I have Kelsey and Tyreek Hill. I went Holmes, Hill, Kelsey. Like, that's where I'm going. I'm going a high-end, high-pay stack, hopefully, and that differentiates me enough, including Henry, that everybody else, as you can tell, because if you try to build a lineup, everybody else is pretty scrub price.
Yeah, you could even throw Demarcus Robinson onto that lineup, too, and just hope that the Chiefs put up another 50 points. And that's how they score.
Well, you can bring. So here's the question for you for what I'm doing here. Would you ever bring it back with Henry and Humphries to say that Tennessee not only keeps pace, but keeps pace basically the entire game?
Yeah, I think that's viable, at least. I mean, you're going to have to be. The problem with a slate like this is you're going to have to be exactly right. So if you're going to have to be exactly right, having Derrick Henry is probably a good way to go about that. And if you have to continue to see the reports on Adam Humphries, but it is looking like he is going to play. But, maybe Corey Davis is the move. Maybe it is Raymond. Maybe they just take shots with him because they get down and they run some. Henry is so effective that they can effectively run play action off of it, and he appears to be their deep play guy.
He does appear to be there. And the good thing about it is, this very well. Anytime you have that Q sitting there, people inherently kind of skip past those people, and he's all the way down at 3,000. He's got the Q. It's got that, which DraftKings does. It's got that nice little statistic right next to it about opponent rank, and it's red. So you've got a lot of triggers. There's a word for you. A lot of triggers which are going to make people inherently go away from Adam Humphries, just almost like subconsciously.
Red zone for Tajay Sharp. Could that be a thing?
I tried to make that case. What was it, 2-3 weeks ago? I tried to do that, and I had Tajay Sharp in the line.
But you're going to be wrong more often than you're right with players like this. So just because they had a bad week and had 0 points, I think that's kind of irrelevant. Are they still on the field in the red zone? Yes, they are.
It was 2 weeks in a row. I was like, hey, you can do this because I just said what you said. So I think that's just my own bias. You're right in what you're saying. It's just, everybody knows how it is. It's just, oh God, he burned me twice. I don't know if I could do it a third time.
Trying to see who else.
You know what he is, Pat?
Who?
He's due.
If he's due, then we got to use him. Can I just go back to Kendrick Bourne?
You could. I think a lot of people won't because of what happened. They say, oh, that was his game. So it's not going to happen again 2 weeks in a row.
I can see myself going to Bourne again.
Look, we brought it up for like what you're just saying right now. Everything with the Tajay Sharp thing, you brought it up for a valid reason, and it hit. And as you said, it's going to hit way less more than it's wrong. But that doesn't mean, again, this is a perfect segue off the do thing. Just because it happened last week doesn't mean it can't happen this week. And that's why I hate the word do, is because every individual effort, instance, opportunity in football, sports in general, is individualized. Yes, over a course of 100, you should have a norm. But that doesn't mean things can't happen 3 weeks in a row and then not happen for 14. So I think if you're chasing low end guys and you're chasing them for the red zone opportunity, Kendrick Bourne, Tajay Sharp, these guys make sense.
I think there's an interesting way that you can play this. So let's say you wanted to build your flex and receiving core. You could use 3 of 3 or 2 of 3 of sort of the red zone type guys and hope you end up with 2 touchdowns out of them. I would say Demarcus Robinson, Tajay Sharp, and Kendrick Bourne fall into that mold. Or you could spin it the other way and say, I want my one play, big play, slate breaking type guys, throw them all together in a mix and hope that they hit. That would be like Valdez Scantling, Raymond, and McCole Hardman. I think
so. You're buying 3 lottery tickets.
Yeah, but you're trying to say, who do I want to put more faith in? The guy who's going to end up with 3 catches and 30 yards, but hopefully 2 of them are for touchdowns, or the guy who could have 2 catches for 125 yards and 2 touchdowns, but is far more likely to have 0 points.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Like all the guys that I mentioned, the big play guys, are like the homeless version of Will Fuller.
Oh God, I don't know. Will Fuller might be the homeless version of Will Fuller this year.
Maybe
2 games the entire year.
Better than Sammy Watkins.
Touche.
And at least Will Fuller sat out 5 or 6 games or whatever it was. So you didn't even have to play him those weeks.
No, well, some of them he was actually out there and then just left early.
Yeah,
that was even better. On top of it, there's good God, Will Fuller. I hate you, Will Fuller.
Tight ends, Kittle or Kelsey or someone else. What's your pick?
I went Kelsey if you can get him, because I think this. So that's why
I don't think that salary restrictions, even at the high price, is going to be that big of a deal this week.
See, that's okay. Well, then I'll swing the question back to you. Then the reason I went Kelsey is because I felt like that was going to be an immediate differentiator, because I felt like everybody is just going my gut reaction was Kittle's going to be 60% owned. He's $1,300 cheaper, and he's George freaking Kittle, and it's a good matchup. I just felt like he was going to be the guy.
I would go the other way with that. I say, even though he's more expensive, everyone wants to invest in this Chiefs offense, and Kelsey is coming off the best game of his career.
Well, then if that's the case, if their ownership's even close, then I would just take the savings. I wouldn't overthink it.
Okay, how about this as a way to differentiate your lineup?
Jonnu?
Play them both.
That's very interesting. I was going to say the double tight end and play one of them in a Jonnu or something like that, but I think even that will differentiate your lineup.
I don't even know if Jonnu's in the best situation out of every other tight end that's on the board, but I think that people are going to do that for sure. If you do see a double tight end set, I can see Kelsey and Kittle being relatively popular, but I think that the move for savings wise, because Jonnu's only $3,400, is take one of those 2 and pair them with Jonnu. But I don't think that, honestly, in terms of raw fantasy points, I don't think that Jonnu is substantially better than Ferkser.
No, he's not. We just saw that last game. Jono got the first catch, and then it was Ferkser with the touchdown, and the only person to have 2 catches. So, what you want to go down to 2,500 Mercedes Lewis? You want to do that? But I do like that.
Honestly, I think if I was going to go down to 2,500, he'd be my guy.
I'm looking right now, and that Kelsey Kittle thing is you've piqued my interest with that.
It's very doable. It's very doable.
It is, because I'm looking right now, and right now my flex is 5,200 and Kittle is 58. I could easily find $600 and move some guys around.
Let's see, Kelsey, Kittle. So if you go Mahomes, Tyreek, Kelsey, Kittle, you still have $4,400 left. So you probably,
I know.
I mean, you can throw, like
right
I said,
now.
you could throw like Demarcus Robinson into that mix. He's only 3,300. Now you're boosted back up to 48.
Oh,
So
hey, Pat, you'll love this. My current lineup, if I slide into double tight ends and take who I had at wide receiver, I originally had Emmanuel Sanders. You know who that leaves me instead?
Kendrick
Bourne.
There we go. Let's talk quarterbacks in these stacks. You hit Mahomes. Everyone realizes Mahomes is the best play of the week. Doesn't mean he's going to lead everyone in fantasy points, but going into the week when you're just objectively looking at it, he's the best play. Now, I tried this last week and it didn't work. I tried a lot of San Francisco stacks with Jimmy Garoppolo. He was cheap. I didn't really care about what the price tag was because we just went through. I just took like the 4 highest priced players of their position. You can fit them all in. That's not a big deal. But everyone's going to have Mahomes.
Right.
Now, they should, but if you're trying to win one of these giant tournaments, do you just have to not take him and pray to God he doesn't throw for 505 touchdowns?
Well, so isn't the answer to either one, write yourself a scenario where Aaron Rodgers does well against the 49ers defense, or 2, come back and just go the opposite side of it. Hope that Tannehill throws more than 10 times or completes more than 10 passes and has one of those games earlier this year where, like, the big thing about Tannehill was that if you look at him for a fantasy perspective, whether it's seasonal or DFS, his numbers were great, but he was on that Matt Ryan. I said this to you. He was on that Matt Ryan 2016 efficiency touchdown wise. He was still only throwing. It's actually Lamar Jackson like. He was throwing 200 yards, 220 yards, but 3 touchdowns, 2 touchdowns, because they throw a lot in the red zone, which is weird when you have Derrick Henry. So maybe it's just come back with a Tannehill, Humphreys, and A.J. Brown stack to completely opposite. But like you said, Mahomes is the chalk. Mahomes, everybody's going to be on him. You're going the other way on that big field because I see if you're playing something that has, I don't know, what are some of the bigger fields? They're like, 100,000 people in there? Like, you can't go Patrick Mahomes. I don't see how you can unless you just pay up for Mahomes, Henry, Williams, Kelsey, and Kittle, and then just get pure dart throws at everything else. That's the only way I could see you doing it.
Yeah, the Millionaire Maker this week is 141,000 entries.
So there you go.
So, okay, let's try to talk about this then. If you use Mahomes, how do you differentiate your lineup? I do think that double tight end works. And
yes,
in this scenario, if you actually do want to win, although it's an against the percentages play, use Mahomes, fade Tyreek Hill, and use McCole Hardman instead.
I was going to say that. Would you still use Damian Williams?
Depends, probably.
Here's what you do, because the Tyreek Hill savings is going to come with it, is you take Mahomes, you do the double tight end, you fade Hill and go to Hardman, but then you go Henry and Damian Williams because nobody's going to be doing Henry and Damian Williams if they're going with the Patrick Mahomes and that stack with Hill. Nobody can do it. You can't do it.
Yeah, this is true. What if I just ended up using Garoppolo, Kittle, and Bourne?
I think the Garoppolo Bourne both being in my line. I mean, it definitely could hit, but that feels now you're definitely in the 1% there.
Well, that's good. That's where I want to be in a turn, like on a 4-game slate. Like, even if that has a 1% chance of happening, and I get it at, let's say that stack is just so low owned, it's, I don't know, 5% owned. And I can figure out the rest of my lineup elsewhere to really differentiate myself and make me unique, even though I know that's a very low probability chance of actually hitting in the context of what you just said, along with that ownership in a field that large. I think I would take that over having, the 30,000th iteration of a Mahomes lineup.
Yeah, but I kind of felt like this was the case. I'm looking it up right now off the top of my head. It was like, I can't do Garoppolo in general. I told you that last week. I don't want to do the 2 30-point games were both against Arizona. He only has one other game of over 20, and that was way back in week 2 in Cincinnati. So there's 3 instances. I just can't do Garoppolo as a whole. I'm not saying you're wrong and it can't work. because it has. It's just I can't get behind Garoppolo in general. That's my problem.
Well, Garoppolo and Rodgers have similar ownerships, at least projection-wise, from what I'm seeing right now.
I would just go Rodgers.
It's 18% each on both of them.
I would just go for Rodgers because I know Rodgers, even against a great defense, could throw for 4 touchdowns and surprise me. I just told you the 2 teams. It's Arizona, Cincinnati for Garoppolo. I don't know that he does against the Packers because Packers secondary is decent enough that I just don't see how he gets 4 touchdowns. 3 touchdowns even.
So you would be 100% Tannehill over Garoppolo.
100%.
Okay. Defenses. Let's talk about this.
So that means it's going to be the opposite.
Yeah. The Chiefs are the best D. I think.
I don't like that.
I mean, I really like it because, again, if you're telling yourself the scenario, even if you have the Mahomes whatever stack, like looking for correlation with your defense is going to be really tough this week. That if you think that they get up by a ton, all that means is that Tennessee has to pass a lot, not run. And then you get the Chiefs defensive line teeing off on Tannehill. It's not like he's immune to getting sacked.
Nah, so you're chasing the sacks. You know me. I try to go. You're right. Well, we did. This is why the collaboration all year long on the defenses. I like to look for the interceptions as well, and I just know Tannehill just doesn't throw them. Was he have 5, 6, 7 on the entire year? And I don't know that he's
okay. So then the move is just to take the Packers because if we're gonna actually talk about who on this slate throws picks, Jimmy G is actually the only one for this season that. Do you get the feeling that Jimmy G is just gonna play like garbage in this game?
There's part of me that does. We were talking about that, and that's why the third part of the parlay was to take the Packers to cover. I'm kind of with you on that. Now, I'm not saying it would shock me if the 49ers came out and won 31-10 and just dominated the game, but it's the sneaky gut feeling of watching sports and watching Garoppolo. That's why I just said I can't get on Garoppolo. I do have the Packers defense because I don't feel great about the Chiefs. The 49ers I just think are too common, but I think Aaron Rodgers, he doesn't throw interceptions. He can get sacked a lot though, but I think the Packers are a nice play.
The move is, if you do want to get contrarian at defense, and I'm probably not going to do this, although I talked
about Titans.
I talked about it against the Patriots the first week when we did it. Like, if you just, all it takes is a touchdown, honest to God, on this slate. And I have them projected at 5% ownership on a 4-game slate. What if they get a return touchdown? Who is their returner? Is it Raymond?
I think it still is. I don't know because he got hurt, so I didn't know if he stayed there.
Is he playing?
Oh, no. I meant earlier this year. I don't know. I was saying I don't know if they pulled him off. I'm looking it up right now for you.
Yeah, look that up. If you're going to use the Titans defense, you have to use
No, you're going to like this. He's the kick returner. You know who the punt returner is? Adam Humphries.
Well, there you go. If you use Adam Humphries, use the Titans D and hope that's how they score. But are we sure that Adam Humphries is going to return to his role as
obviously you're trying to hopefully find a beat reporter out there that might know. Hopefully.
Do we know who returned punts for them last week?
Humphries wasn't back last week, was he?
No, I'm just trying to see. Punt returns last week, 0 returns for the Titans. Perfect. And both Jennings and Raymond actually returned punts.
Perfect. I like that.
Okay, so how about this? If you use the Chiefs defense and you're not playing just one lineup, use Chiefs D and DeAnthony Thomas.
Is he still returning punts? I thought they pulled him off of it.
No, he's returning kicks.
Oh, okay.
He had 3 he had 3 kickoff returns last week. No, sorry, that's for Baltimore. What the fuck am I doing? I'm just. It's been a long week.
This is the Vegas trip, man.
It's been a long week. Now, the fact that we're now looking at who returns punts and can effectively return punts, kick returns. Hardman.
That's where we are.
Okay, so after Hill fumbled his return last week, he was replaced by Hardman. So, in lineups where you do it, using Chiefs D and Hardman makes some sense for that correlation because at least you get double points if he returns it.
So then who do you try to correlate with the Packers defense?
I, honest to God, have no idea who returns punts for them.
There you go.
Let's see. Punting. Oh, Tyler Irvin is the one who's returning punts for them.
Okay. I'm not joking when I say that is actually interesting after the use from last week. Maybe Jamal Williams, just by being hurt for that little time, this opened the door, and now Tyler Irvin gets that same use from last week. Maybe he gets a little work in the run game and the passing game, and then returns. Hey, you're 1% right there.
Especially if they get down as well. I could see that instead of the case that we just made for Jamal Williams, maybe it is Tyler Irvin, and maybe he sees 22% of the snaps. He's not going to be. Yeah. But you need to get lucky somewhere.
And all in the passing game.
So out of all their snaps last week, Williams played 9, Irvin played 7. And Irvin also had both the kick returns and the punt returns, played 8 special team snaps as well. So that is something if you're trying to make a case for Packers D. I mean, if you play Packers D and Tyler Irvin, you could take the rest of the players on the slate, and just having Tyler Irvin in your lineup and Packers D should be enough to differentiate you everywhere else.
Yeah, nobody's taking that. Nobody's taking Tyler Irvin at all.
And as they probably shouldn't, but this is where we're at here.
Oh, light it on fire right
now.
now.
It's just like doing if you use the Niners D and you want to get tricky and not use any of the running backs and use Richie James.
I mean, you could look at it right now. You could just go with a full kick returner lineup.
Well, the Herdman one actually does make sense because he's utilized the offense.
Makes a ton of sense.
And if it is going to be Raymond returning punts, I also get how that makes some sense too, because they'll take a deep shot with him at some point.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
That'll do it. The Pat Mayo experience. Jake, what do you got coming out at the Athletic now that football's over?
That recap my nap from Friday for after the week that we just went through. Next week, recapping the season a little bit. I'm gonna have a lot more dynasty football coverage this off season for everybody out there that's been asking for it. So that's gonna be good. The podcast is still going. My podcast is coming back after this little hiatus that we had, and then your favorite fantasy baseball kicks up soon.
Oh, fun times had with fantasy baseball.
You love it so much.
Have you ranked players for next year yet?
Yep.
Maybe
I got to adjust one already.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I was going to say I had Antonio Brown as a low-end wide receiver 1 because I did it almost 3 weeks ago now. 3 weeks will be Monday. I had Antonio Brown as a low-end wide receiver 1 because I said somebody's going to take a chance. Look how many chances Josh Gordon got. Look at all these guys that they don't care. NFL doesn't care. You have talent, you're going to play. And Antonio Brown on a team somewhere is going to be a wide receiver 1. That was before the whole police thing. I have to move Antonio Brown down.
Well, if you're doing dynasty, let's say Antonio Brown, the Antonio Brown owner in your league is looking to get rid of him. And basically for free. Like you can basically have Antonio Brown. Would you just take him and stash him?
Absolutely. 100%.
Okay. So maybe we'll do a show in a couple weeks talking about next season's rankings after the Super Bowl.
Yeah, good. I'll do another. I do them right after the Super Bowl too. So I'll have an update then. Perfect timing.
You see, that works out. And I can just use your rankings to talk about so I don't have to do them.
Yeah. Do you want to do the tight ends though?
Yeah, I'll do tight end. I'll rank fantasy defenses for 2020. It's going to be my move.
Okay.
Look ahead dynasty defenses with Pat Mayo.
Way too early defense rankings.
Gotta love it. I'll phone Denny too. We can get way too early kicker rankings.
Oh God, no! I banned that part of the show. Did you see that? By the way, we were playing Madden. Did you see that? I was playing Mike Wright of the Footballers in Madden. So this is the greatest situation ever. So he gives the controller to JJ Zachariason, who throws a pick 6 to me immediately. And at the end of the game, I'm running out the clock. It's 3rd and 19 on the 45. And I'm like, I'm not kicking a field goal, but I pulled out the field goal formation for a 62-yarder. He's like, you're not kicking a field goal. I'm like, you're damn right you're not. Fake field goal pass to Eric Fisher for 25 yards to win the game.
Well, JJ should have seen it coming.
No, that was Mike at that point.
Oh, so he given the controller back to Mike?
Yeah, it was just that one play that Zachariason got to play. One play only.
Thanks, JJ. That's JJ's secret move to take down the footballers. Although, as we learned from the award ceremony, there's no award that between Andy, Jason, and Mike that they can't win.
No, there's not. It's a good thing they weren't in the betting category.
Yeah, this is true. Then I would have been completely shut out. But anyway, Jake, it was good seeing you. Thanks for coming on the show. Follow Jake on Twitter at AllInKid, and you can find all of his work up there. You can follow me at the PME, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. And if you want to get into a draw for $100 DraftKings dollars, here's what you do. Subscribe to the Pat Mayo Experience audio podcast. Leave a 5-star review. DraftKings handle is something you like about this show. Winners will be announced on Monday's show with Jeff Feinberg. So download that to see if you won. Anyway, I'm Pat Mayo. Good luck at the championship games. I'll see you next time.
Pat Mayo Experience! Experience!